And so next up, we'll hear from Harmony Biosciences with an update on their Argus trial, and we'll hear from George Nomikos.
Good afternoon, and thanks to the DSF. We're here, me and the Harmony Biosciences team. Thank you for having us. So I think some of you are aware of the phase 2 clinical trial called Argus. This trial is placebo-controlled, double-blind, randomized clinical trial that evaluates the effects of EPX 100 clemizole on the seizures and other behavioral symptoms in patients with Dravet syndrome. Until recently, the Argus trial that was initiated a couple of years ago was run by Epigenic Therapeutics. 2 months ago, Harmony Biosciences, the company that I'm now representing and working for, acquired Epigenics. And we're here to say that the Argus trial is continuing uninterrupted. And we look forward to work with the Dravet Syndrome Foundation and all of you to finalize the trial. First, a little bit about Harmony Biosciences. Harmony Biosciences is a pharmaceutical company that specializes in developing and commercializing innovative medicines for the treatment of rare neurological diseases. The company was founded only 7 years ago, but already we have a very pronounced, I would say, market pipeline with 13 programs, 8 assets, and 3 CNS franchises. We already have a marketed product, a WEKIX, that is used for the treatment of excessive daytime sleepiness and other symptoms associated with narcolepsy. And in the 3 franchises that we were focusing are from sleep to wake. As I mentioned, we have WEKIX already in the market, pitolisant, and there are additional assets in play. And another big franchise is neurobehavioral disorders, such as Fragile X and 22q syndrome. And finally, rare epilepsies, especially focusing on developmental epileptic encephalopathies, Dravet syndrome, and Lennox-Gastaut syndrome. So a little bit about the drug that we are evaluating, EPX 100. It is also known as clemizole. This is, in fact, an old medicine that was discovered and developed in the 50s from Sheridan Plough. And this was the first generation antihistamine that was used extensively with good safety and tolerability profile. It was withdrawn from the market in the 70s with the introduction of newer antihistamines, which were basically better drugs. They lasted longer and had better efficacy. EPX 100 clemizole is being developed as a new chemical entity now that includes the completion of animal studies prior to the initiation of clinical trials in humans. EPX 100 went through phase 1 study in healthy volunteers, and we are currently conducting the phase 2 trial the Argus trial. EPX-100 received orphan drug designation from the FDA, as well as rare pediatric disease designation from the FDA as well. The EPX-100 has been identified as a potential anti-epileptic medication through the pioneer work that Dr. Scott Baraban has done at the University of California in San Francisco with a zebrafish animal model that is a genetic, phenotypic zebrafish drug screening platform that has evaluated established anti-epileptic drugs and also new putative anti-epileptic drugs. So through this work that Dr. Baraban has done, indeed, clemizole EPX-100 was shown to possess anti-epileptic drug activity and is currently advancing in the phase 2 clinical trial that I mentioned. A little bit more on the work that Dr. Baraban did. This zebrafish model predicts anti-epileptic efficacy in people with Dravet syndrome. We will see on under the picture of the zebrafish, and as Dr. Baraban says, from the aquarium to the bedside, the epileptic drugs that are effective in treating symptoms of seizures in the Dravet syndrome, and especially drugs that have been approved for the treatment of seizure activity in Dravet, like stiripentol, fenfluramine, and cannabidiol that we heard, are active in this model. This model is a genetic model. These fish carry a genetic mutation of the gene that codes for voltage-gated sodium channels. And the animals, the fish, exhibit behavior that is very reminiscent to the epileptic seizures that the patients exhibit, but also they exhibit other behavioral and electrophysiological symptoms that are also very similar to the electrophysiological findings of patients with Dravet syndrome, and also the other behavioral symptoms that patients with Dravet have, for instance, hyperkinesia or sleep disorders or anxiety. So the phase and structure validity of this model is extremely high, and in fact, the predictive validity, so in other words, that drugs that work in this model work also in the clinic, is extremely high, as we see compared to rodent animal models. Again, this is a real breakthrough that Dr. Baraban offered to all of us. So going to the trial, the Argus trial, which by the way means is a mythical creature with 100 eyes. So it's something that I should know well. In fact, guarded the gods. Unfortunately, was slain by Hermes, another god. But Hera, in the Mount Olympus, liked the fact that the Argus was such a great servant with 100 eyes that preserved the eyes of the giant and gave them to a peacock. So from now on, I hope that when you see a peacock and you see the eyes of the peacock, you remember Argus, and perhaps you remember the Argus clinical trial in Dravet syndrome. So as I said before, the Argus trial is a double-blind placebo-controlled study that is recruiting, very happy to say. EPX 100 is given orally twice a day in people that are 2 years and older, living with Dravet syndrome. And this is a clinical trial, multi-site, global, with sites in the US, Canada, India, and Europe. A little bit about the design of the study. First, there is a screening period of 4 weeks. This is also the baseline period where seizures are monitored. After this period, there is randomization 1-to-1, so 50% chance that patients receive placebo or drug, active drug. There is an up-titration period of 4 weeks, starting from 1 milligram per kilogram twice a day, up to total 80 milligram twice a day, maximum. Or patients are randomized to placebo that looks, feels, and smells like the drug in solution, in oral solution. Again, this is a 4-week dose titration period. And then the 12-week maintenance period is initiated where, again, patients receive clemizole up to 80 milligram per kilogram, up to 80 milligram BID maximum, or matching placebo. After this period is over, there is the opportunity for patients, for participants, to enroll in the open label extension trial that will last for up to 3 years, or do not participate in the study, and where there is a down titration, taper down period. The key objectives and endpoints of the study: first, the primary objective is to evaluate the efficacy of clemizole compared with placebo as adjunctive therapy in children and adult participants with Dravet syndrome. The primary endpoint, accordingly, is mean % change between EPX 100 versus placebo in countable convulsive seizure frequency after each 8-week period compared to baseline. If you remember, baseline was the initial 4-week period. And then there were 4 weeks and 12 weeks of 4 weeks of titration, 12 weeks of treatment maintenance dose, so 16 weeks of treatment. So there are 2 8-week periods that are compared to the baseline period. The secondary objective is to evaluate the difference between EPX 100 versus placebo in the number of countable convulsive seizure-free days relative to baseline. And accordingly, the secondary endpoint is the number of countable convulsive seizure-free days in the titration and maintenance phase relative to baseline that I mentioned. The key eligibility criteria: people 2 years and older with a clinical diagnosis of Dravet syndrome. It is very important to have documentation of genetic mutation of the SC1A gene. The Participants must have 4 or more countable convulsive seizures within the 28 screening baseline period. They should be on stable regimen of anti-epileptic drugs for at least 30 days prior to visit 1 and generally in good health. Concurrent use of carbamazepine, oxcarbazepine, and phenytoin are excluded because these drugs affect the liver enzymes that are also involved in the metabolism, catabolism of clemizole. So in this way, they may affect the actual dosing, the actual dose that patients take of EPX 100, and for this reason, the concurrent use is not allowed. Also, Fintepla, fenfluramine, for at least 3 months prior to consent has to be excluded, and the reason is that Fintepla, as we heard, is a serotonergic compound, and in fact, the work that Dr. Baraban did revealed to us that the anti-epileptic properties of the drug are not due to its effects on histamine receptors, but rather to effects on 5-HT2, A, B, and perhaps C receptors. So it's a serotonergic compound, and for this reason, Fintepla, fenfluramine is not allowed concurrently. If patients were on Fintepla before, it is important that they have an echocardiogram at least 3 months following the last dose. Argus trial is ongoing. Again, we're very, very happy. And there are sites in Canada and in the US. And we're working to activate new sites. Please visit www.argustrial.com for information regarding new sites, new countries, and new possibilities. Thank you very much for your attention. Please visit the Harmony Biosciences table that we have. We are a small group. We got into this space 2 months ago, but I think we are fierce, yes, right, exactly. And again, I hope next time, I think we will need to place the Argus, the name Argus, with the Greek mythology in a better way, and have feathers of peacocks or peacocks themselves and so on. But please remember this as an image, and I hope with your support we ultimately provide a new treatment for Dravet syndrome that is so urgently needed. Thank you so much for your attention.